Welcome back to the Reboot Show. I'm your host, Sally A. Illingworth, and I'm excited to be here today with our resident technology panelists, Luke Stowe and Kelly Hutchinson from Digital Innovation Futures Victoria. This is our 11th segment of the DIF Daily Download series, and unfortunately, it is our last segment. This segment is brought to you by Big Mouth. Before we get started, I'd like to hand over to Luke to do our acknowledgement of country.
Yeah, thanks, Sally. On behalf of all of us appearing live today from Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, we would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations as the traditional owners of the land in which we all meet on today. We respectfully recognise elders past, present and emerging.
Thanks so much, Luke. As always, if you're coming in live, drop a 1 below. If you're coming in on the replay, drop a 2 below. And as always, let us know where you're coming in from. It's incredible to see how these platforms bring us all together. So, Kelly, last day of the festival, what were the highlights?
Yeah, well, today is the last day of what we call DIF Live. So it's where we have the live program that we're focused on. And we had 37 sessions, which is a lot. Of course, didn't go to 37 sessions. But that's why we have so many different categories. So today we really focused on startups. And LaunchVic, which is the Victorian Government Startup Agency, ran a couple of webinars and ran through the strategy for the next couple of years. What's their focus? How are they going to approach supporting the ecosystem, looking at supporting entrepreneur education, but also about investment. You know, we know that, you know, there's lots of different activations and different accelerator programs that they also do support. And some of those we've seen startup boot camp, but also we had last week startup shake up down in northeast Victoria. So there's been a lot of real activation of the startup ecosystem and support. But how do you get to the next phase? You know, how do we support the scale ups and the growth to become a unicorn? Yep. So a unicorn is not a magical mythical beast, but it's actually a company that has had a massive trajectory and has reached $1 billion. And there's quite a few of them in Australia and out of Victoria. So the goal is, of course, to support more companies to grow that scale. And there really is that starting local in Melbourne, but then being global. So that's the goal. So, you know, it's about that thing of being a startup with a goal to go global first off as the thought. So it was really interesting to hear about what the strategy is to support the sector. And then they had a session around our a new Alice Anderson fund, which is a co-investment fund, which is looking at once a company may have raised a certain amount from private equity, they then might have some government match support. But yeah, so it was really interesting to see, you know, a lot of the evidence that's been developed over the past couple of years through research and a platform called Deal Room. And then you've got finding startups. So it's a way to really know who are the active companies, where are they, what industries are they focused in, what's the segments that they're looking at. So, you know, when you get visibility of a market, you know, that helps to engender more investment. And what we do know is Kate Cornick, the CEO, is saying, you know, somebody sells their company, they reinvest in the sector, you know. And somebody who fails fast with a company and then comes back and gets the next one, you know, and it's being able to have that appetite and support that and championing what's happening.
Yeah, having that ecosystem is so key. Sorry, Luke, go for it.
No, I was just going to say having that ecosystem is so key. So you took the words right out of my mouth. And I think that, you know, what this does is it really, so the new strategy that's just come out from LaunchVic is focused on not only the incubation, but then helping them get, you know, to where they want to go globally. And I think that's a really great initiative. LaunchVic do such an amazing job right throughout Victoria, and that's going to be a welcomed set of strategy for the next phase of most startups. That's great. What else happens today, Kelly?
So there was also the Grad Jobs Expo. So Reesby IT, specialist recruitment in the IT space. They've hosted the Grad Jobs Expo. So it's the Victorian Engineering and IT students and graduates job expo, and the last time we had it in person was at Fed Square, where they had about 6,000 students come through. So it was very, very popular. And then making the pivot to being an online session. So they, made it like we are. We're broadcasting live streaming through YouTube and through LinkedIn. And so did they. So it was really cool because I could sit there and listen to that while I was also working, which could be what somebody's doing right now while they're watching us. And it was really good that they invited a number of different people at different phases of their careers to talk about how their career journey went. And for some brands, there was somebody who worked at Atlassian or Facebook, but there was also people who worked at, say, Melbourne Water. So, it's this thing about careers. You can either go into a tech role in a big utility company or a bank. Some of the biggest IT teams are in big institutions. So it was really interesting to hear the different types of roles, but also the insights. So, when somebody is an employer looking to engage somebody, what do you need to do with your CV? What do you need to do about your interview? Somebody turns up to an interview and they haven't even looked at the website of the company. Well, how's that going to go? So it was really practical tips, and it was good that it was the format of the chat happening at the same time. And it meant that the panelists were able. So this is one of the things you talk about, Sal, that, these are the platforms that bring us together. And that's what I've really enjoyed, seeing different models of how people have utilized the platforms. And I was thinking about it today. We've had some people use YouTube Live and pre-record it and then make a premiere. Or yesterday I went to Startup Victoria's Founder Connect and we used this platform called Get Around, I think it was called. Right. And it literally was this speed networking that you were there for, you got matched with an algorithm, just came into a room, 7 minutes to talk to somebody, and it was super connectors. And I met 8 people in that period of time. And, everybody was in the chat, dumping in their email contacts, their websites, their LinkedIn, and saying, connect with me. That was really great. And so the energy of the chat and then going back into the dynamic of the actual chat space, as opposed to the individual matched one-on-one conversation, it created its own dynamic. So that's, I suppose, that element by which, the geek in me embraces the technology that we're seeing in the delivery of the stories. That's what we've been capturing.
No, that's fantastic. And DIF has been so great over the course of the program. What can people expect next? What happens next with DIF?
Well, DIF keeps going. So Digital Innovation Futures Victoria. So it's a nice little play on the F, because it could be festival or futures. And the idea is that, well, there is the website, the DIF Online Event Hub is there all the time. So we spend 2 weeks really focused and promoting DIF Live, the festival. But then we have DIF On Demand, which is a number of the events that have been over the past 6 months in industry, by people realizing, oh, wow, there's all this place that I can find out these latest thought leadership or advice around careers, or understand about startups and, see pictures in one place. So it's still there. And the DIF On Demand at the moment lists, if you push the button that says what's on DIF On Demand, there's 192 sessions that you could watch.
Right.
And that's because we curate some great stories of the past and putting them here for people to see still. Yep. So in case you miss it, I'll be using that one a lot on social media posts shortly. And the idea is that, it's keeping the conversations going and keeping people connected and learning. And that's what we'll be doing. So the focus for the DIF On Demand, so we say DIF Live is 2 weeks and DIF On Demand is 2 months. But also it's the platform whereby people host, people promote what they've got coming up. So already, tomorrow there's events still happening. They're not in the festival period, but they're still part of DIF, because DIF is about amplifying what great stuff's happening in Victoria, So, there is always something happening, and we chose 2 weeks to focus, but we'll keep there because people keep running events. People keep wanting to do webinars. People keep wanting, both sides wanting to know. And so all the online business intro sessions have been really popular. So it's a really great way and a resource to come back and find out what's happening.
Hey, congratulations on a great program to yourself and everyone else involved in the DIF, Kelly. And I think there's a culmination tonight, isn't there? There's an award. It's
Yes.
the I Award. Tell us about the award and what happens and the excitement around that.
Sure. Well, the National AIIA Industry, so it's the Australian Information Industry Association, and it's the peak body for the IT sector in Australia. And it represents Australia internationally. There are bodies all around the world that look at how can we support the local tech sector. And it is a mix of multinationals, local companies, big tier, consulting firms or companies that have like Technology One or all these types of big Australian companies, from integration to all the different elements. But what we say is that, I think it's 27 years now that the I Awards has been happening. So there's a national award that it's a competition that runs, and they've done it through as virtual this last year and this year, and that's worked really well. Different categories that are acknowledging, innovations and disruption. And it's not, what I've found over time, being previously executive judge for the program, is that, you get to see some amazing innovations that are happening. And it is usually that thing, I talk about innovation a lot and saying it's a new idea to address a problem, an existing problem. And what's unique about it is usually that it's an application into a different industry. So what might have been a health solution originally, if it gets pivoted and applied into a manufacturing position, that's innovation, what we call new to the firm. So, the sun is setting over here in the east.
So is the award is that available via DIF?
Well, the ceremony is on tonight, and there are some videos which will be of the winners and the finalists that they can be found to see what those solutions are. So they do profile the companies and their pitches. So that's the thing about it being virtual, but there'll be a virtual ceremony tonight. And that's why I'm wearing my this is my necklace I would wear if I went out to a dinner.
I haven't really noticed that necklace, but now you mention it, it's very buoyant. It's a bit like yourself. It's
oh, thank you. It's a bit of fluff. It's a bit of fluff. There you go, Tal, because it's a bit of organza,
And so, I think one of the great things that you mentioned there about the I Awards is the recognition of people in the community. And I just think it's so great that over the course of the year, the DIF keeps going, as you say. There's a 2-week period where we celebrate and we keep an eye on the future and we celebrate the topics that are near and dear to us from a technology perspective, and then it culminates with an award. And so, tell us, who are some of if you're interested in applying for this next year, who are some of the people that can apply or nominate their friends or colleagues for this award?
Well, what I find is interesting that it's an award whereby the best entries I've ever seen are the combination of the marketing team and the tech team together talking about their solution. Yep. Right. So it's acknowledging that, marketing has a certain way of I'm going to just move my light. That's better. Marketing has a way of capturing and selling. And you're talking yesterday, Sal, about the narrative arc that you need to put in around technology, because it is often quite complex to try and explain. But then also the technologists are where they're probably going to be able to get that innovation. So what was the innovation that they were doing? But it's also around disruption, I think, and that making a difference. Really what's the impact that technology has been able to deliver, whether that's to the business, government or community. So it looks at all sectors. And there, of course, is a startup award. And, there's Victorian companies that are finalists tonight, and there's companies all over the country. And so they'll be joining remotely. And it's quite, I don't know if you've been to a remote award ceremony, but it's just, it is fun, because when you see on the screen the people who win, you go, wow, it's like being at the Academy Awards, and you see the focus of the close-up watching them, and then they're the one who wins, you know what I mean? So it's quite enjoyable.
And Kelly, just reflecting back on the fortnight that's been, what are some of the key highlights for you as the organizer? What do you think are some of the real key highlights?
I think what the highlights.
They're all
sorry,
your favorites.
You made me. I'm looking out the window.
Yeah, that's okay.
Moment of reflection there, Luke, which often, is that you need to access a different part of your brain, because this is a computer, and I'll be using this computer to do the analysis of all the data. But to me, it's around the connections and the meaningful conversations that people have had. I have thoroughly enjoyed, this is my highlight, the fact that I get to talk with you two who care about the sector, who find it really interesting, and then, you know, are bringing in a mix of different perspectives from industry and different, you know, thought approaches, you know, and that's the mix that I like. That's the sort of the magic that happens. And I had somebody, you know, I've been looking at people who, we do some features on people who make the DIF, and say, you know what, I looked at a photograph from 2018 and I saw somebody in the audience, and she then came in 2019 and was on a panel. And then last year and this year, she's run 2 series of webinars for educators. So that's Carolyn Newell. And watching people come through that journey and realize that they were there a while ago, you know, and say, was that you in that photograph? And they, yeah, it was. And I went, there you go. And it's like Rita Orego yesterday launching the Centre for Industrial Artificial Intelligence at RMIT. You know, a number of years ago, she was involved in the blockchain day with the Blockchain Centre. So it's seeing people come back, seeing how their careers have blossomed over this last year, reconnecting. And I think it was the point somebody said is that it's a pretty tough time at the moment, right? Being in Melbourne, in Australia, it's been a tough year. It's been tough last year when we pivoted the festival online. This year, we hoped that we would have been able to do the DIF regional hubs. And that is actually our hope still. So the plan is that, you know, we know as humans, we really want to connect, but we're all a bit nervous about how that goes these days. I mean, when was the last time? Well, we had it for a magical week on the 13th of July. We could meet together and create a video. People could pitch in live, but we hope over the next 6 months, so between now and the end of the year, so while we've got DIF on demand, but we're going to do some DIF pop-up hubs, right? So at Melbourne Connect, our partner at the University of Melbourne, has given us amazing amounts of events online, but as soon as they're able to, we're going to meet there. And so it's an open invitation for the DIF community, either to come to Melbourne Connect or down in regional, go to Bendigo and meet up, or Warrnambool, the places where we had hoped. And that I know we'll get back to again, whether there's 10 people, you know, 30 people, they're the type of size that you can have meaningful conversations. So that's
hopefully next year the festival will be in person. Hopefully we'll be back at in-person events.
I think it'll always be hybrid. So it will always be hybrid now. Yeah.
The new normal. The new normal.
Yeah, well.
I was just going to say, I think just bring it back to practical things that, you know, the regional Victoria, only coming out of the pandemic, will really appreciate the fact that there is this facility for them to link into for technology. And, you know, my wish for the state is that, and every state around Australia, is that we continue to work on how do we make these regional centres and people living around those regional centres, how do we give them more inclusion into this digital economy, and how do we get them, you know, roles working in IT, even if they live outside of the CBD.
Oh, absolutely. And that is a continuing conversation. And like Launch Vic today just announced a funding, it's my cat, I'm sorry, a funding round, a funding program with Ag Victoria, acknowledging that the technological innovations and startups, and, you know, we've talked a lot about this, is that when there is a real problem and a technology solution is put on top of it from the perspective of addressing the actual practical thing on farms or agricultural agribusiness, the success is likely to be higher than it is from an external popping on top. If that makes sense. So being grown out from that point, you know, that's really what's exciting. And so there's still investment happening in that area. So there'll be more interesting things, and all those regional growth showcase projects that we saw on Monday, you know, some of them only just started. So I really look forward to, as you say, Sal, next year, but also catching up in Bendigo. So we chose those different locations, Wangaratta, Bendigo, Warrnambool, because they're a good location for people to travel a smallish distance to connect with each other and keep learning.
Yeah, Kelly, you know, you spoke about next year. I think on, you know, behalf of Sally and I, we've really enjoyed working with you too for the DIF daily download. And we hope we're back next year. Sally, I might just ask you, you were going to mention the daily download of today. What's the final daily download?
Yes, I'm mindful of time. I'll pop the link up. Today's daily download is an industry go-to-market case study. So you can jump online, go and grab that download. Really, really great resource. And I do want to sort of, as we wrap up, say huge thanks to yourself, Kelly Hutchinson, for joining us for the DIF Daily Download series alongside the DIF 2021 Festival. I hope that as much as I love virtual, next year there's some elements of in-person for the festival.
I agree.
And also a huge thank you to Karen from Big Mouth for powering the DIF Daily Download series over the last sort of nearly 2 weeks. And thank you to those of you who have been tuning in to join us every single day. And of course, thank you to our resident technology panelist, Luke Stowe, for coming along and supporting and contributing to every single conversation we've had.
Thanks, Sally. And I think Karen might still be in the green room. And just as a final note, I think Kelly's cat agrees wholeheartedly with everything we've been talking about.
That's great. Thanks so much, guys, and see you online, DIF on demand.
Yeah. Don't forget
Beautiful.
to subscribe.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.